So Heated Rivalry blew up just because of sex. Okay, can you believe that some people actually think this? I think that Heated Rivalry healed something in every one of us. I have no other reason to explain the success of this TV show, relatively low budget TV show filmed on Canadian tax money. I would say that actually Hidden Rivalry isn't about sex, it's about emotional intimacy, it's about mutual respect, and it's about safety. And I think this is what makes it so unique to all the other TV shows we see right now. And in this video, I would like to discuss 6 things from Heated Rivalry that actually healed something in me. If you're new here, welcome to my channel where I discuss popular TV shows and TV characters and try to understand why they hit us harder than they should, like with the case with Heated Rivalry. So don't forget to follow. And don't forget to watch this video where I talk that the most Russian thing about Ilya is not his accent, it's actually his upbringing. And today I'm gonna talk about 6 things that healed something in me from Heated Rivalry, and don't hesitate to write the things that healed something in you from Heated Rivalry in the comments. I would be so glad to read them. And number 1 is real love isn't big gestures. It's actually very small details. And we all love shows with big proclamations of love, like for example, Bridgerton, right? When we expect a big proclamation of love every season. But in real life, that's not how it works. We don't get these proclamations of love every day, we don't get them every year, or maybe we don't get them in our life at all. But that doesn't mean that we are not loved, that we don't love. No. And actually, real love is in small details, and Heated Rivalry gives us a lot of them. Is ginger ale cold enough? I bought you cokes because you love them, I don't like them. Or feet touching when they sit in front of each other on the couch. It's also a very outstanding thing for a show right now not to be a second screen show, because like if you try to do something in parallel with watching Heated Rivalry, you miss a lot of stuff. And you don't understand what would happen, right? You don't follow the storyline because you don't see the details. What makes it different from other shows right now that exist on the market, let's say, in those shows, characters try to say more with words instead of actions. In real life, love isn't about saying, and we also need that, but this is not what is love in everyday life. It is actually in paying attention to very, very small details about other person and making them important to you, making them matter to you. This is what means that you care for another person, right? And this is what we see in Heated Rivalry, and this is what makes it so relatable and interesting and touching. The second point I want to discuss is mutual respect is a kind of new fantasy or new standard. And what we see in Heated Rivalry actually that, for example, with Ilya and Shane, they respect each other's boundaries very quickly. So once they introduce, let's say, a boundary, for example, when Shane says not here or Ilya says not here, we can't talk to each other during the Olympics because it's in Russia, because we are at the Olympics, and they try to respect those boundaries instantly. And I think it's also very refreshing to see that boundaries are respected, boundaries exist, and it doesn't mean that we don't love each other, that we don't care for each other. No, that basically means that they respect each other. Also, we see this with other characters, for example, with David. And this is what's so refreshing, because I could easily imagine a TV character who, instead of what David did, tries to make a scandal out of it, tries to get some explanations from Shane instantly, even though he came to Shane's house unannounced. He also continues to respect his boundaries by not saying anything what happened to Yuna. So he's leaving Shane some space to tell his mother himself. And yeah, let's get to the third one. The third one is that emotionally mature men exist, and they can still be very messy humans. They can still be not that mature in the very beginning, right? But they can do all this emotional labor, I think it's called emotional labor, for themselves in order to grow in the relationship. And they don't have to be an emotional burden to their partner or to someone else, right? And here, of course, I talk mostly about Ilya because he's childhood is really traumatizing, and of course he has problems with understanding and feeling those emotions, naming them and processing them with, because all his emotions were neglected when he was a kid, and the main emotion that was used while he was growing up is shame, as I discussed in my video here. And that's why when he grows up, it's hard for him to understand his emotions. What happens to many people, not only men, everyone can have this problem, right? That people try to push this emotional labor of understanding your emotions and processing them to another person who is more mature or maybe just more sensitive to other people's emotions. And I think that happens in a lot of relationships, and this is so refreshing because in Heated Rivalry, even though Ilya struggles with it and and we see him struggling with it, he does not push it on Shane, because Shane is more emotionally mature. He's not perfect, but he is more emotionally mature, and he could help Ilya with that, of course. But this is not his place to do that. This is what Ilya has to do that, and he does it. And actually, one of the great examples of this for me is the Vegas scene when they sit at the bar at the hotel before the All-Star game. Ilya asks Shane, like, did you bring anyone with you for this weekend? And Shane does not get the question, but basically Ilya is trying to ask about Rose. And then at some point Shane says something like, can I tell you something? But promise you won't make fun of me. And at that particular moment, we see how emotions change on Ilya's face, and his color story of acting here is perfect. And we see how firstly he was curious to understand what happened with Rose, but now there is something that she needs to tell him, and or maybe they are engaged, maybe he's in love with Rose, or maybe something else happened and he's really scary, but he doesn't push all this snowball of emotions on Shane. Instead, he processes this internally. He doesn't push for any explanations from Shane. Why did you disappear and then you started dating Rose? What happened at the bar? No, he is trying to process it internally before talking to Shane. And then we see how his emotions change once Shane says that I hired a stylist. And also great example of them already being more emotionally mature and handling their relationship better is of course the cottage episode. And we see a lot of beats there that show us that they have grown up. The fourth one is actually one of my favorite. You don't have to be perfect in order to be loved. And I think both Ilya and Shane come from backgrounds when they think that the love is conditional, right? I think in Ilya's case it's even worse. So he never saw love from his father, and actually his father's love wasn't conditional. There was no love, even if he met all the conditions, right? His love was criticism, shame, and all of this. And he actually learned from his childhood that love is something that has to be earned. On the other side, we have Shane. And Shane actually got a lot of love. Having about Shane here, he got a lot of love. But he also thought that love is conditional and he has to be perfect in his career, in his family, with his friends, in his love life in order to be loved. And what we see when they start their relationship, that they together learn the new script. Love does not have to be earned. It's something unconditional. You can be lazy, or you can call yourself lazy. You can be imperfect, but you still can be loved by other people. And this is, I think, what they learn together from their relationship. The fifth one actually is breaking this cycle of childhood trauma. And I think that also resonated a lot with me and many with you. Let me know in the comments. But I think what we see in Ilya's story, that even with very traumatizing childhood, with suicidal mother, with abusive brother and abusive father whose love language is criticism and shame, you still have a chance for a normal and happy life and happy and healthy relationship with your partner. Of course, it takes a lot of work, and for Ilya, it took at least 8 years, or of course he's not perfect at the end of the episode 6. He still has to work on all of this, but with enough work attitude, you still can change these scenarios for yourself. You don't have to struggle and drown in all this trauma for the rest of your life. It's very hard. It took him 8 years, right? And that's why we see this timeline, because it wouldn't make sense for us to see only 1 year in their relationship where they are already grown up and when they have overcome all these struggles. And this is very, very healing for me, because the cycle of this trauma that goes from one generation to another generation can be healed, can be stopped, and can be prevented from spreading to other generations of your family. And the last one actually is that softness isn't weakness. I think people often mistake softness or kindness, vulnerability, for weakness. And what we see, and especially also taking into consideration the typical masculinity script, and this is not what we see here. And we see a lot of examples of them being soft to each other, being warm, being vulnerable, and not losing because of it. We saw it, for example, or in the commercial, they were kind and soft to each other. They could not be rivals, even though the commercial was about them being rivals. They just had fun. We, of course, saw a lot of softness from them as their situationship develops into a relationship. We see how Ilya, for the first time, is so vulnerable with Shane in Vegas after the All-Star game. And we see how actually it helps to deepen their relationship. That was definitely not an exhaustive list of all the things that helped me Heated Rivalry, but that were my top 6, I would say. Let me know yours in the comments. Don't forget to follow, because on my channel I unpack popular TV characters and try to understand why they act like this and why they hit us harder than they should. I continue with my obsession over Heated Rivalry, so definitely expect more videos about Heated Rivalry. Thank you for watching this video. See you. Bye bye.